What is poppin', fight fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Mystic Hour. I'm Darnel Giovani, your host, aka Mystic Black, and I have a very special guest today that I know I promised you guys this last year, but he's here. He's finally here. He is the 10-time world MMA journalist of the year. You've seen him on the MMA Hour. You've seen him on Ariel and the Bad Guy. You've seen him on DC and Ariel. So many shows, and we're going to be happy to see him back on the MMA Hour and on BT Sport as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Ariel Helwani. How you doing, Ariel?
I'm doing great, Darnell. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, of course. And you are on vacation now. How's the vacation going? How's it feel to take a little break off of some MMA things?
To be honest, it doesn't feel like much of a vacation, only because I have all these things that will pretty much kick off in August. And the reason why I wanted to take the break wasn't necessarily because I wanted to, sit in my backyard and take the sun. It was because I wanted everything to come off the right way and to be ready. When I changed jobs last time, I felt like I kind of rushed into everything. And so I just want to take some time and going to go visit family in Canada as well. So it all just kind of worked out, but I don't really feel, and especially a McGregor fight week doesn't really feel like a vacation, but I can't complain. It's a blessed life that I have. And I'm very excited that, I have all these opportunities.
Absolutely. And you've always been consistent in your work, always working every week. Did you always feel at some point you needed a little bit of time off?
Well, I would be lying if I said I did. I've always been kind of the guy who felt like, you got to go. And I've always believed in 80% of success is just showing up, be omnipresent at all the events, try to interview as many people as possible, try to fly to as many events as possible. Yeah. I will say, as I've grown older and have kids, there's a part of me that wants to be around them more and not miss out on things. But I feel like I have like this FOMO. I have this fear of missing out when I'm not doing stuff. And I always say, okay, today I'm not going to use my phone. I'm just going to, and that never happens. Today I'm not going to look at Twitter, and that never happens. So I just think that's ingrained in me. I think I got that from my dad. But again, when you're doing something like this, when you're, covering a great sport and you get to kind of live out your dream, it doesn't really feel like work. So I can't complain.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that on Sundays. I'm like, you know what? Let me take an MMA break, and I just can't do it. I feel like I've missed every single thing. So yeah, I can definitely understand that. But you just finished your contract out with the ESPN, and you're back at Vox Media. Was that a decision easier than people would think?
It was really tough because, ESPN was a dream come true, and I always wanted to work there. And for the most part, it was a great experience. And they did make me an offer, but I wanted something a little different. I wanted, it's tough when you're working for the broadcast partner of the league that you are covering, right? And there's certain restrictions. And I've been someone who doesn't really love restrictions, whether it's what you could talk about or how long my show can be, as witnessed by the fact that, the old MMA Hour, would turn into like a 5-6 hour show. And so when I looked out there and there was an opportunity to do multiple things with multiple people and have more freedom, and I'd be lying if I didn't say getting paid more factored into it as well. Like, it just all felt like a really good situation. And then going back to Vox in particular and being around, these people who supported me for so long, and the studio was still there and the personnel was still there and the whole platform was still there. It felt very familiar and very comfortable, and it just felt like the right thing to do at this point.
Yeah. And did you miss those back-to-back interviews? Because I know with ESPN, it was more, separate interviews when they uploaded the videos. Is that something you miss doing back-to-back while you had your show?
Yeah, and I miss live. I miss being in a studio. I miss people watching you and you're talking to someone and people are reacting in real time. Like, I miss all of that. Now, some of this was due to the fact that, we've been home, pandemic and whatnot. But as you know, things are hopefully getting back to normal very soon. And I just missed all of that. And I really loved that studio. And I helped design that studio, and I only ended up being there for a year before I left. And so I felt like I didn't really get everything out of it. And so I can't wait to be back there sitting in that chair, that desk. I got to do like that quick thing, but it was sort of like the makeshift version of the studio. It wasn't totally built out, and it just felt really good to be back there.
Yeah, and I think of that moment of that video, and I promise you, I had chills. Just it just brought back so many memories of such an amazing show. But are
Thank
you
you.
going to still be able to have Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen on your show still? Is that
I don't see
possible?
why not. I mean, obviously we can't do it like weekly, like we're
Yeah,
actually doing a show because they've got their own things. But I'd like to think that I left on really good terms with everyone, and I like to think that everyone will feel like, I feel like I'm still sort of like an extended member of the family. I really wanted to try to leave on good terms and not burn bridges and not upset anyone. I don't feel like it was personal. I don't feel like, if they would have let me go and didn't make an offer, then maybe it would be a little different. But they did, and it was my decision. So I would like to think I haven't asked specifically, but I would like to think that would be okay.
yeah. And before we get into the UFC 264 talk, you were represented by CAA, Marquel Martin, and the agency over there. Do you think that his response to Dana White on Instagram was the right thing to do, and he said the right things as well?
So just to clarify, I was represented by CAA, but Marquel, like there's like a fight division, a basketball division. I was part of the broadcasting division, so it was completely different. And I'm no longer with them since late February. But obviously, know Marquel, and he's a great guy, and he's done a lot of great things in the sport for his clients. He used to work for the UFC as well, and now, of course, on the other side of the fence. I give him a lot of props, and I have a lot of respect for him for defending himself, defending his client. Historically, it's tough because the UFC can decide who they want to deal with. He can't necessarily decide who he wants to deal with because the UFC is the biggest promotion in the world. And we know at times, they can take things to heart and hold grudges. I hope that's not the case. He has some really big name clients, and they have had issues with other big name managers, but have been forced to do business with them because they have big name clients. So hopefully that's all water under the bridge. Kind of an unfortunate thing for Francis's first title defense, but I hope that there are no grudges, and hopefully he can go and represent his clients freely like any other manager would.
Absolutely. And let's get into it. UFC 264 coming up this Saturday. Will you be in attendance?
I will not be in attendance. I will be doing stuff for the event. I'll be doing a pre-show during the weigh-ins live for Spotify. They have this new platform called Green Room where people can do like live, sort of like Twitter Space or Clubhouse. And so while the weigh-ins will be going on, myself, Pete Carroll, and Chuck Mindenhall will be live. You can listen to us, and then that will be turned into a podcast. And so if you missed anything or you want to get set for the event, you can listen to that. And then immediately after the event, like the second it ends, we'll also be live on this platform. So it's just an app that you download via Spotify. We'll do a post-fight show, and then that will be turned into a podcast as well. The reason why not going to be at this one was because, we had to set up all this stuff, and we just wanted to be in a controlled environment for the first one. Eventually, hopefully I'll be going back to the big events, but I don't necessarily mind it. I mean, there's a part of me that kind of misses the buzz and like all eyes on you at the event and all that stuff. But I think I've been able to prove over the past year and a half that, the work doesn't suffer all that much when I'm back here.
Yeah, Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. If you've watched this trilogy unfold right before your eyes, do you think the Irish fans being back in Las Vegas, a full arena, might give Dustin Poirier maybe that flashback to when he fought Conor the first time, or it won't make a difference because he's just grown since that time period?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think it will come in. I mean, Dustin's a veteran. He's been in this game for so long, and there were fans. It wasn't obviously, whatever it's going to be on Saturday, 19,000. There were fans for the second fight, and they seem to be, a pro Conor crowd. But these guys know each other so well. They have done it all. They have been in every kind of situation. No crowd, big event, small event, all that stuff. So I don't think the crowd's going to come into play all that much. I'm just really curious to see how that first round goes. How does Conor look? What kind of stance he has, how aggressive Dustin is, all that stuff and more. I think we learned a lot about them in the first round of the second fight. And of course, in the first fight, it ended in the first round. So that first round, I think, is going to be very telling. I can't wait for it.
Yeah. And Dustin has, I mean, you've interviewed these guys since they were very young. What's something you see differently in them from when you first interviewed them to them for each one of the guys?
Well, for Conor, I mean, when I first interviewed him, he was not the Conor McGregor that we see today. He was just kind of starting up. He was on welfare. He didn't have a pot to piss in, as he said, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, now he's turned into one of the biggest stars in the world. But one thing that's interesting about him going into this fight this week is that it feels like he's not doing a lot of media. Like he's keeping things very quiet. They're not putting out a lot of stuff on social media. And so I think if you're a fan of his, you're happy about something like that. You're liking the fact that he's not, spreading himself too thin and doing a bunch of stuff because he's kind of been there, done that. Dustin, if I'm being honest, has remained relatively the same. I think there was a knock on him at some point in his career that he couldn't get over the hump, that he couldn't win the big one. I don't think that's the case anymore. Of course, we saw what happened in the last fight. Yeah, he lost to Khabib. Everyone lost to Khabib, but he's been on quite the roll, and he's won some really big fights against some big names, Gaethje, Alvarez, and whatnot. So I think he's come a long way. The mental side of things, like physically, he always had the tools, but I think mentally he's really evolved and come a long way. So I hope and suspect that we'll see the two best versions of these guys. And I really think it's a pick 'em fight. Like you can sit here and make a strong case right now as to why one guy's going to win. I'll be like, yeah, you're right. That guy's going to win. And then you can make a strong case for the other guy. And I would say the same. It really feels like a toss up at this point.
Yeah. And let's just say if Conor were to lose this match, do you think he'd be okay retiring and still have that much of an impact on the sport that he has nothing left to prove?
No, not at all. He's too young. He's too competitive. He has too much of a fighting spirit. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if he retires. If he loses, it'll be, a blow, but he's so famous and so popular that all he has to do is win a couple more and he's right back in the same spot. Like I don't subscribe to the notion that this is a do or die fight. It's a must win. I mean, of course, he wants to get a title shot. He has to win this fight, but I don't think he goes in the gutter and becomes irrelevant if he loses this fight. A, because he's so popular, and B, because Dustin is so good. Yeah. It's nothing to be ashamed of if you lose to him.
Do you think this is the most important fight of both their careers?
No. I mean, Conor fighting Jose Aldo was gigantic. Conor fighting Eddie Alvarez was gigantic. It's a big fight, and people like to say like the next fight is always the biggest fight. You can make a case that if Dustin loses, he kind of goes to the back of the line, further back than Conor does, just given the fact that Conor is so much more famous than anyone, including Dustin, in the sport. But they have fought for belts and on big stages, so I feel like it would be disingenuous to say it's the biggest fight of their careers, respectively.
And is there any other fights on the card that you're looking forward to see on Saturday?
I mean, obviously the Wonderboy Gilbert Burns fight to me is the second biggest fight. I feel like, as far as stakes are concerned, that's the one that's most important. Always fun to see Sean O'Malley. Of course, bummer that he's not fighting Luis Smolka. Also a bummer. I was really looking forward to seeing the Sean Brady, Kevin Lee fight. That's hopefully going to happen later on this summer. But if I had to pick one, the Wonderboy Gilbert Burns fight feels like the one that's the most important with the most stakes attached to it, especially when you consider Gilbert's coming off that title fight, which, he looked good in that first round, rocked Kamaru Usman, and Wonderboy still in the title picture at 170. Feels like the easy fight to pick.
Absolutely. And switching gears here, Ariel, the other day I went to a restaurant nearby and I ran into somebody that RJ Barrett of the New York Knicks.
Come on.
And at the local place right here. One of the nicest guys I've ever met.
In New York?
No, in Miami.
Oh, RJ was in Miami?
Yeah, he was in Miami, which I was surprised. I'm not sure what he was doing here. None of my business, but
yeah,
really nice guy. Is there a chance you'd ever be a Brooklyn Nets fan, or will that never happen?
I mean, look, the Knicks have they've tested my patience and my fandom over the years, and I think every Knicks fan would admit to this. It's been tough. Like the toughest moment was definitely the Charles Oakley moment when they dragged him out of there. I mean, that's Charles Oakley who gave everything to that franchise. It really made me think like, oh God, I don't really want to be a fan of this team anymore. But when it's a team that you grew up watching and it's like ingrained in your soul, it's kind of hard, at least for me, to quit them. So I mean, like I see the two jerseys, like I'm always drawn to the Knicks. Like it'll be very hard. Like if the Nets made the finals, I don't even know if I would root for, like, just out of love of New York, I don't even know if I would root for them because I think the Suns are a great team. Like let's say it was Nets versus Suns as opposed to Bucks versus Suns. So no, I don't think I could ever with a clear conscience, pick the Brooklyn Nets over the Knicks. It's just not the same. They don't have the same vibe, history. The arena is not the same. Like nothing is the same. And I really like this Knicks team. I feel like they're underdogs, and obviously we'll see what happens this offseason. But there's they remind me of the Nets team from like a couple of years ago with D'Angelo Russell, where no one thought that they would do anything, and they were all kind of in it together. It's tougher to root for like the big bad, behemoth that just signs all the big name players. So I don't mind the Knicks being like the lovable underdog who shocks people along the way.
Absolutely. And Ariel, last question here, and I appreciate the time so much, big time. I saw Ali unblock you on Twitter.
Yes. Wow.
Is this is this going to be the return of you interviewing Dominance MMA fighters? Because I feel there's been so many interviews that I wish you could have done with Kamaru Usman, of course, and a couple of the other guys that he has. Is that coming back?
It's up to them. Yeah. I've never left. I've always been here, and some of them talk to me and say, "Oh, I wish, we could speak." And I would say, who's paying who here? Like, who's the client and who's the guy who's paying the checks? You're paying this guy. If this guy doesn't like me, what does that have to do with you? And by the way, I know he likes me deep down and watches all my stuff. So I one of the tweets popped up on my timeline. I was like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while. And then I clicked, and there I was, unblocked. Weird timing, as I just have left ESPN. I wonder why that is. But I would say it's up to them. I'm here. I've never left. I've never changed. So if they want to reverse course, then, I'd be happy and willing.
Absolutely. And I hope to see those interviews again, because those are amazing, especially with guys like Kamaru. But Ariel, thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it big time. I met you in Las Vegas about 5 years ago at Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz. You told me to never stop doing what I do, and I've been having that in my mind ever since. And I appreciate the opportunity, of course. And just know that you are, to us and a lot of people, one of the most impactful people in this sport. And that would go down in history forever.
Oh, well, that means a lot, man. And any friend of Robert Pearson's is my friend as well. And hey, you got a great voice, man. You got those pipes. So keep it up. I love the look. I love everything that you're doing. So keep it up. My honor to be here on such a big week. And I know that I've been kind of putting it off a little bit because there was a lot going on. So I'm sorry for making you wait, but great to be on with you and great chatting.
Absolutely, Ariel. We'll talk again, hopefully sometime soon. Maybe we'll work next to each other one day.
All right, cool. I look forward to that. Take care.
Ariel Helwani, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back this week for some more interviews. You know that right here on the Mystic Hour, which is named after the MMA Hour. So appreciate you guys, of course. See you guys later. Boom.